He's a prophet. He's a poet. They know it. I must be the greatest.
Once known to the world as the greatest because of his boxing skills, today Muhammad Ali is known for his courage and determination as he fought for his rights against the United States government and prevailed. On April 17, 1967, Muhammad Ali refused to be inducted into the U.S. Army. He strongly believed it was his personal right to refuse induction because of his religious beliefs. He believed it was the responsibility of the United States Constitution to protect these rights. Muhammad Ali was born as Cassius Clay in Louisville, Kentucky in 1942. The world was in turmoil as World War II raged across the continent until 1945. About 1 million African Americans fought in the war. As a result, they felt they had earned the right to be treated equally in society. Now, it was the responsibility of the United States government to grant these rights. Rights promised them under the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Rights that had eluded them following the failure of Reconstruction. Sadly, this did not happen. America was unwilling to change, and when veterans of World War II returned, the America they came home to was the one they left. This was especially true in the South, where blacks had no political power as black codes, fear of losing jobs, or even death prevented them from voting. Some blacks did not know they had the right to vote. Without political power, they lacked the opportunity to improve their economic status. Therefore, blacks were at the bottom of the ladder in society. Growing up in the South, Cassius Clay encountered a society filled with racial prejudice, discrimination, Jim Crow laws, fear, and intimidation. He even remembered hearing about a lynching of a young boy from Chicago named Emmett Till. As a boy, Clay encountered bullying situations. Slowly, his attitude changed and he decided he wanted to be tough. He became fascinated with the world of boxing. From 1954 to 1959, he trained with local policeman Joe Martin. According to Martin, young Cassius was different. Martin felt he was a gifted boxer and had real potential. He was determined and developed a strong work ethic. Eventually, Clay became an amateur boxer. During his 108th bout amateur career, Clay won 100 matches, national titles in both the Amateur Athletic Union and Golden Gloves competitions. Clay then set his sight on the 1960 Olympics to be held in Rome. As he prepared for the light heavyweight competition, he became a national favorite.
Best of the USA boxers. His Roman name, Cassius Clay, the winner for the USA.
He was now ready to enter the big time, professional boxing. His big chance came on February 25, 1964. Reporters from 17 countries gathered to watch the match held in Miami.
Liston, and Liston starts to retreat. If Liston goes back in his father, he'll end up in the ringside seat. Clay swings with his left. Clay swings with his right. Look at young Cassius carry the fight.
In spite of Clay's fast talking and poetry, many felt there was no hope for the kid from Louisville against the dominating Sonny Liston.
Here is, this wonderful young guy. In a couple of days, he's going to get his head handed to him.
Clay shocked the world and defeated Liston in the 7th round. Following his triumph, he became known as the People's Champ. Away from boxing, the United States was experiencing social and political conflict. The unrelenting civil rights movement flamed. The women's movement that started following World War II was in full bloom. It was a time of change and political unrest. On the world political front, the Cold War, which started after World War II, continued as two superpowers competed for world dominance. Out of this came the Korean War in 1950 to 1953. Discussions about bomb shelters and school children practicing defense drills grew as fear of an evil Soviet Union under Nikita Khrushchev announced to the United States, "We will bury you." During the 1960s, the United States found itself being drawn deeper into the war in Southeast Asia again. Over time, extra combat troops would be needed. Clay did not know how the events in a small country in Southeast Asia would impact his life. In 1964, Clay failed the U.S. Army qualifying test because of his writing and spelling skills. That same year, Clay announced to the world that he had joined the Muslim faith. Through this new faith, he became close to militant Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad. As a respected member of the Muslim faith, Elijah Muhammad gave Cassius Clay the name Muhammad Ali. This was an honor as he believed Clay was a slave name given to him by his parents. His conversion came at a time when the Nation of Islam was unpopular with mainstream America because they preached black superiority.
As the war raged in Vietnam, the U.S. government realized more troops would be needed. In 1966, the government lowered the conscription standards. Ali was now classified as 1A. Therefore, he was eligible for the draft. When notified of this status, Ali declared that he would refuse to serve and announced he was a conscientious objector. The more he spoke out, the more he became a target.
I'm not going to help nobody get something my Negroes don't have. If I'm going to die, I'll die now, right here fighting you. If I'm going to die, you my enemy.
On April 28, 1967, in Houston, Texas, Muhammad Ali was scheduled to be inducted into the U.S. Armed Forces. Ali refused 3 times to step forward at the call of his name. Warned that he was committing a felony punishable by 5 years in prison and a fine of $10,000, Ali refused to budge when his name was called a 4th time. He now faced his toughest opponent, the United States government. At the trial on June 20th, 1967, after only 21 minutes of deliberation, the jury found Ali guilty. Immediately, he appealed, but the Court of Appeals upheld the conviction. The courts based their decision on the premise that he refused because of his political beliefs and not his religious rights. Although never in prison, Ali was in exile. Banned from the ring, he chose a different venue and exercised his right to free speech, speaking out against an unjust war, talking to the media on the injustice of the draft system, speaking at civil rights rallies. Ali would not be silenced. He became a civil rights and an anti-war icon. Once supporters of the war, many Americans now questioned our involvement. More pressure was put on our government. Incidents like the My Lai massacre, Kent State and Jackson State killings, the invasion into Cambodia put pressure on the government. As the war raged, Muhammad Ali continued his personal fight in the courts. 2 years before the end of the war, his case was heard in the Supreme Court of the United States. On June 28, 1971, the Supreme Court unanimously ruled in favor of Ali. The 1967 decision was overturned.
But then he began to understand the issues, and I think that he became, a great champion.
In 1972, Ali traveled to the holy city of Mecca. There he encountered Muslims of all races. He realized that he had been misled by the Nation of Islam and slowly broke away from their beliefs. Ali was now ready to pursue his boxing career. On March 8, 1971, in what was called the fight of the century, he lost to Joe Frazier. This was the first loss in his pro career. In 1981, Ali decided to retire from the ring. At the time, he was the only man in boxing history to win 3 titles, 1964, 1974, and 1978. In 1984, Ali was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. However, this did not stop him. Once criticized for his stand on rights, he was now a symbol of how the Constitution works. He continued to travel the world as a humanitarian, seeking peace and justice for all people. In the last 20 years, he has received numerous awards for his work. In 1987, the Bicentennial Foundation for the United States Constitution selected Ali as a warrior for the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights because of his courageous stand in 1967. In 1991, Ali traveled to Iraq during the first Gulf War to negotiate release of hostages. In 1996, Muhammad Ali was honored to light the Olympic torch in Atlanta. In 2012, the National Constitution Center awarded Ali with the Liberty Medal for his impressive courage and humanitarian efforts. Muhammad Ali's contribution to society showed the world that he had the right to practice his religion and was responsible to protect not just his own rights, but human rights all over the nation. He showed the people of the 60s the flaws of the system and the injustice that riveted our nation. The government was responsible for protecting the citizens' rights to religion, but Muhammad Ali brought attention to the failures that the government had in protecting those rights. Muhammad Ali is a bold icon that continues to be influential everywhere. This was the draft of a legend.